in his head about what must be done. Taking no time off, daddy stays on the run. He's my dad and I love him. With him I have no fear, because anytime I need him, I know daddy's right here.
Look, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. Oh, it's just my dad. My dad. My dad.
Moving through the streets with swagger and ease. Often works 2 jobs to take care of our needs. Taking it all in stride. Daddy seldom complains. His emotions he'll hide. All his aches and pains. Stays up in his head about what must be done. Taking no time off. Daddy stays on the run. He's my dad and I love him. With him I have no fear, because anytime I need him, I know daddy's right here.
Look, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. Oh, it's just my dad. My dad. My dad.
Moving through the streets. Hey y'all, what's going on? This is your man Spirulina. Welcome to another episode of Daddy's Right Here Live. What's happening? What's popping? Yeah, well, we know it's gonna be some popping in a couple more days, right? Coming upon New Year's Eve, and people have already started celebrating. Even before Christmas, you heard the pops and the pals and I don't know, are they gunshots? You kind of get confused. It's like you just hear them all year round. So from the fireworks obtained in December for New Year's Eve, you still hear them all the way up to July, the 4th of July. So that means then you hear them from the 4th of July all the way up. It gets confusing after a while, right? Hey, so today we're going to be talking about self-sabotage, right? What does that look like? It's something that's often talked about a lot of times in treatment. When people are in substance abuse treatment, or any kind of treatment, and they've been in that treatment space for a period of time, that safety zone, that zone where there's always help right there.
almost on demand. Either you have nurses or you have counselors or you have psych techs who are right there at your every beck and call, right? And when it's time to leave or when it gets closer to the time of discharge, some people just aren't ready for that. Yeah. And even for those who are incarcerated, the closer it gets time to leave, the more dummy stuff they seem to do, you know, to jeopardize that date. For those who are maxing out and then they're not under any kind of supervision, it's even more trying because it's a foundation of structure, of consistency, of stability that often takes place when someone is under supervision and makes them less apt to go out and do some serious damage to themselves and society. A lot of times to go out, they'll stay out past the curfew time, but to go out and actually reoffend a crime, well, it happens. We know it happens, but in many instances, it's just a matter of I'm free. I want to be able to do this, and I wanted to be able to do that, and I didn't see why that should be a problem. I'm not committing a crime. But isn't that something like what we say every day? We're not incarcerated. We're not in treatment, right? Well, enrolled. But we're in society every day. We're in this so-called free world. And we still do the same exact things. We still sabotage our continued freedom. And for many, freedom, period. Freedom, period. Because you are still bound by the unresolved. Still bound by the unresolved. Your own unresolved. But it's difficult to see that it's you and it's not everything and everybody and every place. It's you. There are things within yourself that you are not okay with. Many times you're not even okay with just who you are overall. Your skin complexion, your weight. You're short, you're tall. And you layer everything else that happens in everyday life upon all of those things. And before you know it, it's like having an elephant sitting on your chest. You can't breathe. You can't move. You don't seem to have the ability to function. Hold on a minute. Last week we ran into my sound. Hopefully we don't run into that issue on Instagram again. But I'm getting ready to fix that because I'm getting ready to link in the Instagram platform to this whole StreamYard system where all the sound will be coming right through this actual microphone here, and I don't have to have my phone in front of me. It's a great thing. Oh, and on that note, and I'll also be live beginning next Saturday on X. Yep. Spread the fan base, looking at, what areas I'm able to be successful, in covering. And it's not about how many views. It's about where I can be, better seen, better serving of people. The more people that I'm able to reach, obviously, the more people I'm able to get some information to and possibly help. So it's about using the analytics and looking at, where I'm actually going. And many of you who follow me on Instagram are on those same platforms as well. So I won't be losing you because I certainly don't want to lose you. As a follower, as an advent, supporter of Daddy's Right Here in Its Mission. So those would be some of the changes that you will be seeing, however, This coming year. Yeah. Um, and kind of looking at, overall, what happens to a person this time of the year internally. People who have a foundation of uh, planning out the year and, well, this is my resolution for the year. This is what I'm going to do this year different. You know, brother, posted something on in the feed the other day on Facebook, and he was saying how he's going to make a lot of changes, with folks, in 2024, and my response back to that was, why wait? Why wait? Empty your trash cans now. And I say that respectfully. Empty your trash cans now. Don't wait till January comes in and begin your year with your trash that you've carried throughout this year. People, places, and things. Trash removal is today, right now. Right? You don't even want to see it sitting on a curb come January 2024. You want to be able to walk out your door and see that trash can lid flip back because the people that came and emptied it. Yeah, you don't even want to see it. Have a whole different lens, an entirely different lens. And this is important because, when we're talking about self-sabotage, you have to look at the things that you continue to do to yourself that you blame others for because you don't want to confront that ugly monster within you. Yeah, because it's ugly inside. And many people, some is even uglier. But you don't want to look on the inside because there's a picture that either you painted of yourself or others have painted of you that has resided within you for a long time. And you have dressed it up in all kinds of ways. You've dressed it up in all kinds of ways. You manipulated yourself into believing that I'm doing good. After you tell yourself things like that, for a period of time, it becomes second nature for you not to only regurgitate it whenever you encounter people, but you believe it. You've convinced yourself of that. And when you convince yourself of something that's not true, that lives inside of you, and you try to overwhelm it with your lies and your deception, you fall deeper down that rabbit hole. You do. So when we're looking at the self-sabotage and how you undermine your own happiness, you have to start looking at you. Stop, looking at anything else. Look at you. So there's an article. Y'all know I'm good with articles. It's important to read, man. Especially for the black and the brown folks, because we don't like to go to therapy. We don't like to go to counseling. It's something that we got against counseling, man. That it's like we get the EBGBs or something. Counseling? What do you mean? I'm nothing wrong with me. I don't know what life you live in, but we all got something going on. We've all been impacted. We've all been traumatized. All of us. And if you don't understand what trauma is, probably that's where you want to begin. What is trauma? Next week's show is going to be about adverse childhood events, things that take place that traumatize us in early childhood. But I'd really like to go beyond that, because although the article I perused, like I said, I just perused the articles. I don't go in depth into it. I disagree or agree with those things in it, or I just merely, elaborate and expound on some of the content. But I'm not in agreement with some of the things that I saw, because what happens is it actually gets applied. It's a subliminal message. It's subliminally attached to a particular group of people. And it's evidence when you read it that, yeah, well, that's what they say about black folks. So everything is subliminal, and and it's the content that it's the narrative that is going to continue to just be prevalent in everything that we see and do. But there's very little discussion about what happens in the womb when the mother is pregnant and the stresses and everything that she is subjected to during the course of her pregnancy, and its impact upon the fetus. It eats everything that she eats. It consumes everything that she consumes. It experiences everything that she experiences. And there's very little discussion about that subject matter because trauma happens at that point as well. At that very point. Right? We have no idea what the collision looks like between the sperm cell and the egg. But I digress. We're going to cover some of that subject matter next week. So this article, Psychology Today, Sean Grover, LCSW, right? Licensed clinical social worker. And the article was posted July 31st of 2023. And it was reviewed by Gary Drebich. The title of the article, Happiness. 6 habits that undermine happiness and sabotage growth. Avoid these nasty happiness-destroying activities. So, have some key points noted here. Bullet 1, internal conflicts can fuel emotional tension and generate impulsivity and poor life choices. Yeah, internal conflicts. I want you to hear that. So for those of you in the front row who didn't hear it, internal conflicts can fuel emotional tension, right? Emotional tension, meaning that there is something that is there. There is something gnawing at you. So that means that it may come and go. It may be persistent. It may be consistent, and eventually it becomes insistent upon some resolve, which means that you have these bursts of anger that happen. And he says, and it generates impulsivity and poor life choices. So the explosion comes when that tension, that emotional tension, is not addressed. Right? You find yourself snapping out at people. You find yourself walking away from situations that are for your benefit or that can benefit you, your future, your life, and you just like, nah. The smartest of people, the most grounded of people can be subjected to the same if you don't address the unresolved. I don't care how much chanting you do, how much praying you do, how much meditation you do. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're not settling your issues. You're settling your spirit. But you leave your spirit in disarray because you're not addressing the issues. It's not going to go away. I don't care how many prayers you offer. You're still going to be in the same condition. Period. That's not how this works, folks. And poor life choices. And you find yourself in a position like, how did I get here? And sometimes it's, how did I get here again? External conflicts, the next poll, to happiness are easier to manage while internal obstacles are harder to spot, are harder to spot. Why? Why is it that the internal ones are so much more difficult to contend with than the external ones? You see it. You formulate an opinion about it. You think you know what's happening here. right? And again, the external conflict is usually the result of the unresolved internal conflict. So you don't see it. What you see is somebody outside of you saying something or doing something that is affecting you. Either you're in agreement with it or you're in disagreement with it, right? Either it is or it isn't. Either you're with me or against me, right? So you can easily manage those things. Okay, well you're not with me. I'm out. But having to deal with that decision is the other parts of that, because now you still have to deal with that outcome. So now you impulsively walked away from that situation. And now you don't know how to get back. And it's hard to get back because you've already convinced yourself that it's them, that it's not you. That's what this bullet is ultimately saying. The internal obstacles are hard to spot. You don't see it. And a lot of times we'll say that, oh, no, they know what they're doing. People do see what they're doing. They see that they're defending themselves. I'm defending myself from what he just said, what she just said, what they just did. I'm defending myself because I have the right to defend myself. He didn't have to say it to me that way. He didn't have to talk to me that way. I'm not this. I'm not that. So if you have to explain who you're not, then you have to be able to explain who you are. And this is where it gets difficult, right? I'm not his child. Okay, so let's talk about that. Why do you feel like he's talking to you like you're a child, or he's treating you like a child? Why do you feel like that? Well, because he's saying, okay. And when he says this, you feel like a child. Is this something that you experienced as a child? So why would you? So if you didn't experience it as a child, how are you interpreting it as being treated like a child? How do you treat a person, an adult, like a child? What does that look like for you? Because you have to get to the core of what's happening here. Right? So as a child, you were told what to do and what not to do. And you feel like, okay, you are of this age and you believe that you're an adult now. Therefore, you should be not spoken to in that manner, but you're not aware of, or maybe not acknowledging the fact that you're acting like this person, this child that you were when you were 8. And here you are 28 and you are still acting that way. Maybe this is where the unresolved, maybe this is where the trauma happened when you were 8. Right? So now you begin to do some work on what was happening when you were 8. Right? What happened during that period of time? The third bullet, happiness destroying habits include holding grudges, self-neglect, and creative stagnation. Now, I like how they worded that because, when you look at creative stagnation, like you get to a point where, so you know what stagnant is. Like stagnant water is something that just sits there and it doesn't move. It does absolutely nothing. It's really purposeless. It's just wet. It's water that just sits, eventually evaporates, right? When you're stagnant in the area of personal growth, you kind of plateau out. You flatline. Ultimately, that's what you're doing. You reach a plateau where you have established some level of comfortability with this is the person that I'm going to be. I'm not going to do anything different. I'm not going to be anything different. This is what it is. So I use the term flatlining because people plateau out and they stop growing because they have stopped allowing information to come in. New information. They stop educating themselves. They stop sharpening their tools. that had them, on top of things, on top of growing and developing and all those things. But somewhere along the line, they convinced themselves that, hey, it's a wrap now. I'm good. I know everything now. That's flatlining, because at that point you don't let anything else help you. And this is where people find themselves standing on the side of a bridge, standing on a stool with a rope around their neck, sitting on a chair with a firearm in their hand, in their mouth, or under there. This is where people find themselves, who get to that point where you become just closed to everything that's going on, and you won't find a way out. You won't see a way out because you have closed off any other idea, any other ideal ways of coping with that you have inside of you that you have failed to address. So it just ultimately, kills you. And the worst kind of death is a spiritual death. So when you walk around and you're closed minded and you can't graft a new idea into a closed mind, then you're just walking around wandering aimlessly and reckless, because that's what it's saying here. So you start holding grudges against people who are not in alignment with your preferred thinking. Therefore, because they're not in alignment with your preferred thinking, you don't take in that information. And anytime they try to offer content to you for your betterment, in many ways, you just shut it down and you become resentful of it. And that's what I have found to be in the case of a lot of venues that I have been a part of, that supposedly represent the good of the people, that have this mission of change, stop the violence, increase unity, things like that. And you sit to the table and you find all the same exact people at that table that you saw at the one with the other group, right? Because people have gravitated towards one another. And now all these people here have kind of branched off and splintered, right? Because they don't get along with such and such because he's a Democrat, or because he's a Republican, or because he's from the north side and I'm from the south side, and so on and so forth. So these self-sabotaging things, manifest in many ways, which ultimately affects our local levels of government, because we keep the same people in offices, right? And then it just goes on up. It's the same thing that happens in the community, where you don't get along with the block captain because you have a different perspective. But instead of running for the position of block captain, you rather belittle and, desecrate that person's humanity because you're in disagreement, which further splinters the community, right? Then it talks about self-neglect, right? What it is that you begin to do or not do for yourself. You stop caring for yourself in the manner that you just go out looking any kind of way. You just let anything just come out of your mouth. You don't practice any kind of prudence when you're talking about other people who are in your circle, be it family members, friends, whoever it is. You practice no prudence. You just go out and put that stuff out recklessly. And then when you're confronted about it, your overall attitude is, yeah, well, it is what it is, right? It's a lot of other things. Hey, Denise, how you doing? So ultimately, there's a whole lot of other things that happen when you are self-sabotaging, right? I was sitting the other day. I sit on the patio all the time and just kind of, look out at the water and the animals and stuff like that. And so this humongous iguana, he's got to be every bit about maybe 4 feet long. He's been out on that side. Well, every now and then he comes and swims across the water from that little island space and comes over. But, I was just sitting there just looking at him, and, just the thought just crept into my mind of when I was little. I used to sit in the window and I used to just look out the window. I was raised by my mother, and I used to always sit and look out the window and fantasize. And it seemed like for a brief moment, I rubber banded back to that period of time as an adult. And I began to actually feel what I felt like looking out that window with nothing to do and wanting my neighbor, Mr. Carl, to come over and get me, because he would always come over and get me, take me to shoot pool, taught me how to work on cars and different things like that. Just have a conversation with me, which I didn't have at home from my dad. And for that moment, I was like in a place of what it felt like as I began to come into the teen years, living in a project in South Philadelphia, and wondering, was this going to be the rest of my life? You know, where I was in that moment. Like, is this going to be my life? Getting up every day, go connect with a few of the homies, sit out, chill, twist up a few, puff, puff, pass, spill some out for the fellas, go to work, come home, play some more. Was that going to be life? And even though that hasn't become my life, it's just, you have to wonder what it feels like to live that way every day of your life. And don't see any way out. There is a way out. I mean, I'm proof you can like get up out of that thing and keep it moving. But it's just like in that moment, and we have to understand when we talk about childhood trauma, which we'll talk about next week, right? How we rubber band, it's called rubber band. We rubber band back to different periods at different points in times. And what happens is some of us rubber band back to a period of trauma and stay stuck there. Yeah. And that's part of the self-sabotage. Let me jump on down to happiness. External obstacles, we're on that article again. External obstacles to happiness are easy to spot, such as financial hardship, a failed relationship, a sudden accident or illness. Such unsettling events jolt us into action. We apply for new jobs, start dating again, follow a doctor's guidance, and hopefully regain health. Like a movie hero, we see external obstacles as a call to action. So we go right to it. The internal obstacles, however, back to the article, internal obstacles to happiness are harder to spot and less noticeable. Often there's no sudden change, no one to blame, and no transparent barrier in front of us. Internal obstacles ultimately lead to unresolved conflicts with ourselves, opposing impulses that create emotional tension and frequently lead us towards self-destruction. Listen, it's no secret that I've been married a few times, 4 to be exact, and gonna do it the 5th time. But in each one of those situations, I saw myself constantly growing. I saw myself, trying to establish a foundation of us, but everybody's not built like that. Everybody's not ready to be in that place. Most of what I found was that it was my expectation that this is what you want based on conversation we had. But then when it was time to, okay, come and grow, it didn't happen that way. It didn't happen that way. And much of it has to do with the fact that there's not enough investment in self, the internal self. The investments are in the external self. Therefore, you get the man, you get the woman, you get the house, you get the car, you good. I'm not. That's why I made the song Before, right? I want love no more, been married before. People have to kind of look at it and hear it, right? Because each one of those times, I based it on love. And it's not about love. It's about a spiritual connection that we both understand our roles to each other. Not how am I going to benefit your bank account. Not if I can put you in a $300,000 house. Not if you lose your job, I can turn. No, am I willing to do these things? What have I demonstrated to show that I am willing to do these things that are necessary for us to stay the course? But one of the greatest problems in our society has to do with this independent thinking. You don't lose independence when your independence when you're in a relationship or marriage. And if you do, then you shouldn't be in it, because it's two independent people learning how to merge and to function as one. Right? That twine, right? That's the foundation. Me, you, and God. So that's where the foundation is. And oftentimes that becomes a problem because one's interpretation and understanding of God and their preferred practices becomes the greatest of the divide. Because you'll regurgitate that which is written, but it's not demonstrated in the morals and the values of your behaviors. So ultimately, that's been the case for me. You know, would never bash them, say anything negative about them. It was two good people who just couldn't work out, right? I'm ready to go here. Everybody ain't ready. And it's hard to really determine ready because sometimes, like I said earlier in the show, you can mask this internal madness real good with external stuff. You can kind of finesse your way out of an interpretation by one of something negative, right? And make it look like it's all positive. Then when it get time to show up, you know. That's why the song says, representative disappears, another woman fractured. Wasted all my years. Once again, I'm captured. If you haven't listened to my music, you got to listen to my music, right? Because that's what ultimately happens. The representative leaves. And I'm one of those emotionally intelligent dudes. So I can be even more of a challenge, right? But I'm also a recovering enabler. So that's one of the other things that I had to address. I'm a person who's very accommodating. So I had to start looking at my conduct and how my being an enabler, my being so accommodating contributed. Can't blame them for taking advantage of it, but I have to look at how it contributed. I have to learn to stand on some things and be firm on some things and be okay with that and not be fearful that you're going to leave. Because that kept me in a lot of situations for a long time. None of these were short-term marriages, right? But I had to see what I was, because that's part of self-sabotaging. When you're always enabling others, when you're always setting aside how you feel about things, when you're always minimizing the situation, taking ownership of people's stuff that don't belong to you, right? Tiptoeing around persons, you doing that to yourself, right? And that's the point I had to get to. I was doing that to myself. So instead of blaming the external events, as the reason for my conditioning, I started using those external events that were triggering those things inside of me and forcing myself to take an honest look at, an honest appraisal, an honest assessment of my own condition. Because that's what it all came down to. And I was making myself unhappy as a result of it. Yeah. So back to the article. So 6 happiness destroying habits. Number 1 on that list is grudges. Walking around wishing ill will on others is a terrible way to go through life. Worse, the grudges you nurse weigh you down and can trigger depression and anxiety and zap your creative energy. I liken that to, it's like pissing on yourself. Don't nobody feel it but you? You walking around with a wedgie, everybody's running around hunky-dory, you balled up in the knot. Everybody else having a good damn time. They have no idea what's going on with you, or what's going on with you has to do with something that you imposed upon them. No idea, no clue. And you're interrupting your own happiness. You don't attend certain functions because I know Denise gonna be there. I ain't going. Right? Denise come there, smiling as usual, happy-go-lucky, having a great, wonderful time, waving to everybody. You sitting over there. Well, she would just leave. When she got somewhere to go, and another story to chase or something. Right? It's crazy. People actually do that, and like we're oblivious to this thinking. We're oblivious to this attitude, that this resentment, this grudge that we have, that they have upon us. And we looking at them, we're like, what's wrong? What's wrong with him? What's wrong with her? Number 2, compare and despair. Comparing yourself to others and coming up short warps your world outlook. Some pitfalls of comparison and despair include lower self-esteem, a weaker core identity, and growth sabotage. You compare you to you. Each day I try to be a better version of myself than I was the day before. And when I'm confronted with various things, in my life on each day that are reminiscent of my past, I take that moment to make the adjustment. Sometimes you don't wait till the next day and become that better version. This is the better version right now, right here. Here's the test. It presented itself to you. So this is the time that you want to go ahead and confront that. This is the time you know what? Hey, listen, you're right. I remember one day I was 69th in Market. This was some years back. And I couldn't get over to the turning lane. So I was the next lane over from the turning lane. And I had my foot on the brake and my other foot on the gas, like I was at the starting line for a race. And as soon as the light changed, I got off the brake, zipped around, passed the vehicle in front of me, and I was stopped by a traffic that somebody was parking. I was stopped behind the car. So the person that I was trying to get in front of, he pulled up next to me, and I just had to laugh. He said, "What?" I said, "Bro, don't say nothing." I said, it was stupid. It looked like a really good idea at the time. We both just laughed. And, I guess that was, his lady was in the car. All four was just laughing. I said, "Bro, it looked like a real good idea at the moment, I thought he said, all you got to do is put the turn signal on. I'll let you in." But if my thinking is the world is so impatient and so uncaring and so unempathetic, and there is no courteousness, right? Had I not been thinking that way, I could have put the signal on, at least gave him a chance to see if he was going to do it or not, as opposed to using a blanket approach to people. There's no courtesy, right? And a lot of people do that today. They just wait for that moment instead of using the signal. And the first thing I think in my mind when they do it is, just use the signal. Duh. Again, in that moment, right? And I realized that was dumb. So don't compare yourself to anybody other than you. How did you deal with this situation before? Can you deal with it better right now? Always looking to improve upon yourself every day. We talked about creative stagnation. Curiosity will keep you young. Taking classes, exploiting new activities, and taking an art, theater, or dance stimulates your yearning to expand your life. Creative stagnation can breed despair and hopelessness. I stay involved with something. I just finished up the album in November, my third album. Starting up the LLC, finishing up the business plan for that, and so I'll be putting out some promotional stuff on that, because Daddy's Right Here is an LLC. It's currently a nonprofit, a 501c3. And I've also started a Daddy's Right Here LLC. I'll be doing conferences, lectures, classes, workshops, things of that nature, to the community. But the focus is on providing fatherhood classes, groups to those transitioning from state correctional institutions, those who are under some level of judicial supervision. Plan on opening up a family visitation education center. If you go to my YouTube educational page, you can actually see the video. It says Mari's out. It was something that I presented to them, trying to get win this money. But it's the same plan. It sits on a few acres. It's like a ranch of a sort, a resort. Um, but it's also uh, something that allows me to bring together families, especially fathers and children. It's a whole layout. Just go to the my Severe Lame Educational Station on YouTube, and you'll see what it is. It's magnificent. So that's my ultimate goal. But I finished the album, and I was just looking through my book the yesterday, and I realized, geez, I got like 6, 7 songs that are unfinished. So I'm about ready for another album. And that's just what I do, man. But I stay focused on one thing at a time, but I just don't do one thing at a time because I don't want to be stagnant. I don't want to sit back and just be that person that just has a 9 to 5 and just come home and just do nothing. I can't do that. I don't, there's some people who are happy with that, but I'm just not the one. I'm always doing some research. This is part of my research. Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock, finding, I go through my LinkedIn and I see different subject matter from Psychology Today, Samson, and some of the other ones. I bookmark it. When I get up Saturday morning or Friday night, whatever's laying on my spirit, I peruse those things, I bookmark, and that's what I'm feeling today. Bam, let me do this. And this subject matter is just like, listen, it's the end of the year. You start the year off right. Get rid of everything right now. Take responsibility. Take ownership for what you have created. Blame time is over. You're in control of your own life. You got people around you who have not cut them off. See, and you don't have to even say it. Stop calling. You'll see how often they call you. Yo, you want to go to the club tonight? And you don't answer the phone. Next week. Yo, you want to go to the club tonight? Next week. Yo, what's up, man? You good? Yo, I'm going to the club. Holler at me if you want to go. Next call. Yo, meet me there, man. I'm at the spot, man. Check me out. After that, nothing. That's the value that they have of the relationship with you. How does that contribute to your goals? Y'all like my cup? It's just a nice custom-made cup my baby bought me. See that? And it's one of those insulated cups, and I really don't want to promote nobody's product, but this cup is the best thing since sliced bread. Let me tell you why. It's insulated. I can pour a hot cup of coffee in this cup. Yes. At 8 o'clock in the morning. It will still be warm at around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Because, see, I can't take this inside of the prisons. So on my way, I'm drinking it. If I don't finish it, I might be in the institution for 2 hours, come out, get ready to go to the next spot. Coffee's still hot. Same thing. I got a big one for cold stuff, right? Same one, right? It's a larger one. It's got straw already hit. I put some ice cubes in there. I put juice in there. When I'm traveling, I got ice cold juice all day long. When I say all day long, it is all day long. Hot and cold beverages, right? And I need that because I don't have the luxury of most of the prisons don't have ice unless you have to go to the kitchen. They go into the kitchen. It's like an act of Congress because, if you ever been in prisons, you understand what I'm saying. So then you got to spend money. So keep it cooler in the car. I can do that too. Get me a little refrigerator and put it in there. But it's just great just to have that cup with the same juice, right? Just shake it up and it's already there. You ain't got to spend no extra money, right? Because I'm trying to save, man. I ain't trying to spend money unnecessarily, right? But it's a great cup, man. But this is a nice little custom design here. Go Eagles. We got this. Self-neglect. We talked about self-neglect. Number 4 on this list, self-love is not a vile, Self-love is not so vile a sin as self-neglecting. Poor diet, right? Eating fast foods all the time, which I didn't talk about when I was talking about the neglect, right? Eating fast foods, eating cold foods, not heating up foods, not eating the right foods. You got all these processed foods. See, this is what happens with self neglect. You start eating all these processed foods, then you start having some health issues. Again, things you don't see, but it all begins with self care, which we spent the last 4 weeks talking about self care, and here we are again. Still on self care of a sort, but what you need to begin to do to stop sabotaging your happiness. You're sabotaging your own happiness. So you got to start looking at these things. Don't complain about your issues with your weight and you're still eating the wrong foods. You're depressing yourself because you want to lose weight, but you don't change your diet because you're feeding your discomfort, of your self-concept with more foods and all the wrong foods. You see how that trickles down? And exercise, poor diet and exercise, right? Does your job require you to do a lot of walking around the building if you walk in the building? I got a corporate office. I'm in the field most of the time at the prisons. I'm always moving. I'm driving, 2 hours, 3 hours up and 2-3 hours back. But when I get to the sites, I'm at a desk. And I'm usually, doing something there. I'm usually going to, see what's happening with staff. I'm usually walking around in the dorms, so on and so forth. So I'm moving. But I still have to do more because I don't move enough where it's actually elevating my heart rate, which is important, right? Lord knows the dog come running out of somebody's garage here and I got to break camp and I go into cardiac arrest because I just can't handle this dog is coming, and you just pass out. The dog got you, but, exercise, so what are you doing to just kind of maintain yourself? They got things now. You can sit in a chair and it's like a little bike. You can sit there and you can still, just kind of roll along with that. They got treadmills now. They don't have the tall ones. They just got the flat ones. You can just walk on it. Don't take up a whole bunch of space because it's just a flat unit. No armrests or none of that kind of stuff. It's a flat unit. So they have things that are there. They got bands, exercise bands. I got bands hanging up upstairs. I can, I got a partial gym down on a patio where I have weights, free weights. I have a universal system. I have punching bags. You got to be able to do things. You can't just, you'll fall apart. And this is what it says here at the end, ultimately, it breeds despair and hopelessness. Self-neglect is just so important. It's the same thing. The outcome with this is the same. Intellectual decline or some outcomes of self-neglect. Like being able to hold a conversation, and a focused conversation and not one that's laden with the confusion and rhetoric that doesn't make for a healthy interaction, because a lot of times it's just like, man, I ain't trying to do this. What it says? Lack of mindfulness, media binging, creative dullness, and intellectual decline are some outcomes of self-neglect. That's why I say I'm always reading. I'm reading this article. I'm internalizing the information. And like I said, 95% of the articles that I review with you in these shows, I'm reviewing for the first time. Bear in mind, I've been a clinician for 30 years. Right? I've been a clinician for 30 years. Right? I've observed the behaviors of others for 30 years. But most importantly, I've observed the behavior of myself. So I have a very in-depth understanding of cognitive behavior treatment, very in-depth understanding of myself. What I like, what I don't like, why I don't like it, what I don't tolerate. I just have zero tolerance for a whole lot of stuff. And each year, that I am blessed to be on this planet, I find that I'm more and more intolerant of other shenanigans, and that sometimes can be to my detriment as well. Right, having the responsibility of supervising, a whole bunch of folks, it's easier for me to maintain that. But in personal life, it's like you kind of sometimes have a free for all. The other little cousins of that intolerance comes out. Yeah, sarcasm, crass, lack of empathy. Yeah, that's what happens, man. When you let one out, man, the family members just want to join in. Hey, he's out. Come on, y'all. And it come out at the same time. Yeah. Social isolation. Few people thrive in isolation. A recent U.S. Surgeon General's report declared loneliness to be a national health epidemic in the United States. Another report from the BBC shows increases in heart disease, stroke, and dementia among men who struggle with loneliness. Why are people so lonely? Buddhist peace advocate Daisaku Ikeda suggests that the depersonalization of society has resulted in more isolation and a loss of community. Yeah, depersonalization. Social media is taking over. Be anything you want to be. Yep. Be anybody you want to be. Yep. You can. Anybody. Number 6, addiction. Nothing can derail happiness faster than addiction. It destroys families and relationships, snuffs out creativity, and robs life of lasting joy. Whatever the substance, it's undoubtedly going to end badly. Whether it's ice cream or fentanyl, it ain't going to end good. If you're addicted to eating ice cream every day, all those issues that come about as a result of that ice cream, the 99 chemicals that they have in it, the weight gain, the artery clogging. You want me to go on? Yeah. So it's a lot that comes along with all that. And no good is going to come out of anything that you're addicted to. Even scripture says that strict asceticism is forbidden. It says that in the Quran. It means live and enjoy life. Understand what the moral values are of this belief. Consist of. Right? But don't adhere to it so much so that you lose sight of that which I have laid before you as your enjoyment, as your pleasure during this test. You understand what I'm saying? So, what you gonna do? Right? New Year's Eve, I got a special show for you. Yeah. And this show is so, let me tell you how special this show is. This show is going to be an actual live audio recording that is going to be released on your favorite music platform. Yeah. Yeah. Whatever, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Deezer, iHeartRadio, other countries, whatever, Amazon. Yeah. So I'm going to actually be recording the show as I do my regular shows. And also going to have the other microphone connected to the Porter studio. So I'll be wearing headphones that day so I can hear my voice in it, so I can keep that cadence and keep that tone. But it's going to be what it actually is going to be. And only those of you who are watching this right now and those of you who see it before tomorrow night will know. It's actually a 45 minute to 1 hour spoken word. Yeah. That's actually what it's going to be. Now, y'all know I can open my mouth and it just runs. Yeah. I can go. So this is a spoken word, and hopefully I won't have to do too many edits, any edits at all, on the recording that's going to be released. I mean, I can pretty much masterfully do the edits, but part of what I've done is saturated myself with the content. It's just bulleted items, so it's not even a script. Oh, but I did do a hook, because the hook has to come in. But so it's not scripted; it's just bulleted. Bulleted matters, and it's going to be, like I said, 45 minutes to 1 hour spoken word, and it's going to be recorded and released. Yeah, I'm excited about it. I usually do a New Year's Eve show from like 11:30 to 12 o'clock, bringing in the new year. But I decided I wanted to do something different. So if you're not in church, if you're not if you're not prostrating, at that time, because that's what some do. Hey, tune in, man. You want to watch the Rockin' Eve. So let me give you something else. Let me give you food for thought for bringing into to bring that new year in. What we got here? So we are near at around the hour. And let me see. I want you guys to hear this song here. It's a song. The name of this song is Young. I wrote this song. It's one of the songs that's going to be on the title track to my film, Why Are You My Ex? Young is about a 13-year-old boy. Yeah, me. Engaging in sex with a 22-year-old. Yeah, it's not made up. See, it's not like that rapper stuff. They play gangster, get on stage, act like they gangster, and they really never been gangster. No, this song is real, it's legitimate, and it's about me. The name of the song is Young. Listen, as always, I thank you guys for tuning in. You can be doing anything else on a Saturday morning or any other time when I have a show on air, but you tune in, and I appreciate that. You guys have a wonderful holiday. And realize that 2024 is here. Make it happen. Make it happen. Y'all have a good one. I'm your host, as always, Sabir Lane. What the heck that is? So, all right. I got to get that out because then they'll get me on copyright stuff. I don't play nobody else. Here we go. Y'all have a great day. I'm your host, as always, Sabir Lane. 13 virgin, pristine conversion, top down perversion, sex coercion. It was the best thing since sliced bread. Visions of a body dancing in my head, doing things I could only dream of. You had to know from me, girl, it would be love. Follow you around like a puppy on a string. A curfew comes in, then a telephone rings. Reminiscing in my bed alone with myself in my hand. I'm hard as a bone. Just a young kid, caught up in his feelings. All through what? A sexual healing. Up in my head, day and night. When darkness falls, fantasy takes flight. Chasing a feeling, each the release. Touching girls my age. Kiss me. Most of the girls weren't even regular in bed at night. Holding the teddy. Love, not in the equation, young boy. Body invasion. Now you taught me when you want me. Obligated to let you flaunt me. 13 virgin, pristine conversion, Adele perversion, sex acts conversion. Now I'm feeling like I had no choice. Get her out of my head. Voice. I'm chasing tail, running the streets. I want love no more. I'm a heartbeat. Shit, you learn me, toss and turn me. You want sex, cause you're lonely. No clue what you do. Both of us together don't make two. This ain't fiction, a sex addiction. Brain fiction, it's the mission. Unbeknownst to the doer, the outcome is traumatic skewer. So confusing, but amusing. While you're using, our souls are fusing. Not just a lace, so you say, don't value me. My heart's in
in a way. Find balance between love and sex. Mind the fuddle like I'm under her heads. She reinforced inside of me. Between the stars is where you wanna be. 13 virgin, pristine conversion, Adele conversion, sex acts, conversion, affection, rejection, body selection, no love for the person, just an erection, coming is easy, latex squeezy, a need for the flesh,
Kiss me.
free me, what's love got to do with it? She wants hot semen, now I'm spewing it. Took away my virginity, having sex with a child, traumatic infinity. 13 virgin, pristine conversion, adult virgin, sex acts, conversion. 13 virgin, pristine conversion, adult conversion, sex acts. Conversion.
Don't be a